Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. Got a lot to cover, and I'm actually, make sure you stay tuned because later today I'm going to drop a different video on this. I got some information about, my employer, GP Transco, and some stuff I've learned, and I want to share that. But I want to do it in a video that's separate from this particular subject. So, by the way, I got a phone call from Tim. He's in Cagliari, which is in Sardinia. So if you don't know where Sardinia is or Cagliari is, I've been to Sardinia, but not to Cagliari. Look it up in Google. It's an island in the Mediterranean. It's kind of a cool place. Ancient. So that's where he is. I don't know. He didn't say if he was quarantined or if he was able to leave. So try to get more information on that. But anyway, that's where he is now, or when I talked to him yesterday. So today I'm in Menominee, Wisconsin. Just so happens across the road there's like a Walmart DC, so there's a lot of trucks that this loves. And a lot of them, like the guys, like at least two parked straight across from me, not in actual spots. Notwithstanding that there were spots when I pulled in a little bit ago, and a guy's backing in like two trucks down, so just lazy, I guess. Anyway, what I wanted to just mention is one of the things I like about Wisconsin, and I lived in Wisconsin many, many years ago when my wife and I were first married. I was involved in a pre-commissioning project, and I lived in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, which is in Door County, that little finger of land that sticks out into Lake Michigan. It basically separates Green Bay from Lake Michigan. Anyway, so I like Wisconsin. I like cheese, and by the way, this is a law in Wisconsin. If you're in Wisconsin and you're required to carry cheese on your truck. It can be any variety, and it can be in block form, shredded, whatever. Cheese curds, they're very popular. But you have to carry cheese in case somebody has an emergency where the treatment would be for them to eat cheese. So you have to be able to render assistance with cheese. Look it up if you don't believe me. Again, Google. So one thing I like about Wisconsin is the Tomah and Warrens area, and you may know Tomah. It's where like I-90 and I-94 come together on the western end, and then they split apart a little bit east of Madison. But what's cool about that area is, and a lot of people probably don't know this, especially if you've never been up here and paid attention. It's where cranberries come from. I know, like, when I was a kid, I thought cranberries all came from like Massachusetts, right? Pilgrims. Yeah, I just associated with Thanksgiving. But really all the cranberries, a lot of them, huge amounts of cranberries, come from the Tomah and Warrens area of Wisconsin. And they're huge bogs. You can see some of them from like 90, 94. But I've also ran a few back roads in that area, going to different places in Wisconsin, and they're all over the place. Ocean Spray has big operations there, as you might imagine. But what I also like about that area, especially around Warrens, is there's a lot of pine trees. And so I just associate those red and green colors. It's like it's Christmas all the time, because you see the bogs with the berries in them, and you see the pine trees that all look like Christmas trees. It's kind of cool, because I like Christmas. So anyway, I just share that with you. They also have like a cranberry festival and all sorts of other stuff. By the way, there's another Walmart DC in Tomah. But anyway, so that's kind of what I'm doing, traveling today. I'm actually on my way to the Twin Cities area for a delivery tomorrow morning. But what I wanted to talk about today, it's kind of funny. I was talking to another truck driver yesterday, and he said something like, he was telling me about how many miles he runs, and I got to, like, when he was telling me about what he does, I was like, that's ridiculous, you know? So let me, and I mentioned DMs before, but let me just say it this way. No trucking company is better than their worst DM, you know? And what I mean by that is that I feel like a lot of truck drivers, probably unbeknownst to upper management, leave trucking companies to go to another trucking company, hence problems with retention and turnover and stuff, because of their DM. Not because the trucking company doesn't pay enough per mile, and not because maybe even there aren't enough miles to run at the company, but because of a particular DM. And I'm going to share a story, and I've said this before. When I was at night, I had a great DM. In fact, I talked to him, I don't know, a month ago, because he called me. He's like, hey, trying to find out if you'd be interested in coming back tonight. And, you know, he called me when I was driving, and I returned his call when I got stopped because I like the guy, and he always did right by me, you know. And he was always straight with me, and we had a good relationship. I just didn't make, it was just a pay structure at night. And then I went to J&R Schugel, and I had a DM that was horrible. And I'll share one instance with you, and this is how a bad DM will make a good driver, a guy who wants to run and who is, you know, a guy you want on your payroll, how a bad DM will make that guy leave. And so here's the scenario. I had a load that was delivering in Billings, Montana at about 8 or 9 in the morning. And it was a Wednesday. So I get there, I make my delivery, no problems, right? And of course, when I send my empty call in, invariably I get the message, no pre-plan. And I was always like, I just wanted to freaking smash the Qualcomm, because I was like, yeah, no shit, I know I don't have a pre-plan. I'm supposed to, but I don't. So I was like, all right, whatever. You know, I got a little bit of shopping to do. So I'm going to go over here. There's a Lowe's, and right next door to it's a Walmart. And I'll just go over here to this Lowe's and park and walk over to Walmart. So, you know, that's what I do. Now, what in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's going to know that I'm empty and that I need a load. So I go in, I do my shopping, I come out, and, you know, I call, and I'm like, hey man, you got a load for me? And he's like, I'm working on it. So I knew that I was, because he was in Michigan and I was in Montana, so I'm 2 hours behind him. So I knew that by like 3 o'clock, by 1500 in Montana, he's going to be, you know, out the door of the office. So it gets to be 3, and I'm like, you know, because I was just hanging, I'm like, all right, so I'm just going to PC to a truck stop. And I was like, and then I'll get up early. I'll get up, because he came in at like, I guess 8 o'clock. I'm going to get up early, and I'm going to call him. So I'll get up at 6 and start hitting him up about getting me a load. So I drive out to this Love's that, and I can't even remember the name of it, but it's actually right off of I-90. So when you go east of Billings, 94 and 90 split there, and or come back together. In fact, when they split in Toma, they get back together right outside of Billings. So anyway, I head down 90 and I go to this Love's. So the next morning I get up, you know, I send a message. I'm like, hey, you know, need my load, yada yada. Nothing. So I wait about an hour, and then I call him, and his number goes straight to like the general phone number for the company, which every driver at J&R Schugel knows is a total crapshoot as to whether you'll actually get a human being on the line. It just is. Like, they don't even have an automated like, you would have to know somebody's extension to get a hold of them. And so I'm like, man, that's messed up. So what I do is I call back, and I just start dialing numbers. Like, I don't know anybody's extension, because they don't give you a phone list, by the way. I don't know anybody's any other DMs, extensions, or anything. So I just start dialing numbers, and I get a hold of a live human. And I'm like, hey man, I'm out here in Billings. I can't get a hold of my DM. And it just so happens that the guy that I get a hold of is in operations. And he says, oh, you DM's on vacation. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this dude left me in Billings, Montana, and went on vacation. And I was pissed, of course. You know, and so he's like, oh, well, I got another DM I'll have another DM call me. This guy calls me finally, like, after several hours. And he gives me a load that I have to pick up in, like, Jerome, Idaho, which was like, man, I think it was probably like a 350 mile deadhead. And he gives me an appointment time. So what I do is, I don't want to, like, waste my clock, and I'm already in a parking spot at a place that I can at least take a shower. So I basically back into what time I need to leave. I end up staying at that truck stop for being off duty. So from the time I went over to Walmart until I got back on the road to go to Jerome, Idaho, was 32 hours. And I had to leave then to get there on time. And then, of course, I get there and it's really not an appointment. And that was one of the worst things he did, but not the only thing he did. He left me sitting 29 hours right in Chicagoland, you know, like, couldn't manage, and he lied to me about, oh, they said the load was ready. I'm like, dude, you're full of shit, you know. He also didn't get me home for Father's Day. So that's in a nutshell my story of a crap DM. But let me tell you about this other guy that I talked to yesterday. So this guy has a good driving record. He's been driving about the same time as I have. He's young, though. He's like my older children's age. And he said that he went to work for a company, and he was like, he came from Swift, by the way. He went to a private driving school, but then he drove for Swift for a while. Then he came to the company he's at. Well, he said that, you know, this company he thought was just OTR. So he finally said to his DM, hey, how come I always seem to be running the same routes? And the guy said, well, because you're on dedicated accounts, or a dedicated accountant. And he's like, well, why is that? I want to run coast to coast. You know, I want to run the whole country. And the guy was like, well, the reason we put you on dedicated is because you live in, wait for it, too close to the terminal. And I'm like, what? Since when does living close to a terminal have anything to do with the loads you run? Like, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? Like, the answer, not a damn thing. And then he told me that he runs, like, you know, he's happy to get 2,000 miles a week, and he ends up taking 34s like pretty much every weekend, even though he doesn't do it at home. even though he's really close to the terminal, apparently. And I said, man, I hate that. I hate taking a 34 on the road. You know, I want to run every day. Even if it's just 6 hours, I want to make some progress every day. And he's like, yeah, he goes, when I went off duty, I had 26 hours on my clock. And I'm like, how does a company justify forget about the driver for a second. How does a company justify having their assets, trucks, trailers, sitting for that long? Like, I don't get it. And I go, dude, man, you should ask for a new DM. And I think I've mentioned this before. When I first got to GP Transco, my DM and I did not see eye to eye. And so what I'm about to say is, if you're a driver, don't quit. If you went to a company because you thought it was going to be a good company, and it's not, 9 times out of 10, it's because your DM is not a good DM. You need to fire your DM. Now, the best way to fire a DM, this is my experience, is go above their head and make your case. Don't frame it as if your DM is screwing you over, because then it makes you sound like you're self-centered, like you're the whiner, right? Frame it in a way that makes it sound like your DM is screwing over the company. Make your DM the problem, because he really is, right? So when you go to operations, when you go to somebody senior and you say, look, I could make you more money, I could run more miles if my DM wasn't such a chucklehead. And why do I want to sit when I got 20 hours on my clock at the end of the day on Friday? Why would I want to sit Saturday and Sunday? And just ask them, don't you have loads that run over the weekend? Don't you have loads that pick up on Friday and have to deliver, 800 miles away on Monday morning, or 600 miles, whatever? Maybe you don't want to kill yourself on the weekend. Maybe you just want to run 600 miles over 2 days. That's cool. But make it seem like the DM is hurting the company, because really they are, right? Think about this. I was reading in an industry magazine, or whatever you want to call it, industry rag, that recruiting, or more accurately, turnover ratios cost companies around, I think it was 20 basis points in OR, okay? And so there's a huge cost to recruiting. So 20 basis points in operating ratio. So what that means is 0.2% in OR. That's significant, right? If a company can improve 0.2% in OR, that basically means that it's costing them 2 cents less to make every dollar they make. It's, that can be significant. So if a DM takes on a driver and can't keep that driver happy and treats the driver like crap, the DM is costing the company money in recruiting costs. It's cheaper to keep somebody than it is to find a replacement, a qualified replacement. And I know DMs get bonuses. I don't know exactly the structure at every company, but I know they get bonuses. And if I were running a trucking company, I would say to DMs, hey, if we recruit somebody and you can't keep them for X amount of months or a year, then we're going to cut your bonuses because we got to shunt money to a different department, to the recruiting department, just to make up for the fact that you're a douche kid and you treat drivers like crap. And I guarantee that there are companies that know which drivers have the worst retention rate. And you know, they may be like, well, it's a lot harder to train a DM than it is to hire a new driver. Yeah, maybe. But if you didn't have to hire 20 new drivers a year because of one DM, wouldn't that be a lot better? So people, if there's a problem with your DM, you know, if you don't like a company, figure out why. And if it's because of your DM, fire your DM and get a new one. And then if that DM doesn't work, fire him and get a new one. And if they won't do that for you, then that's your message to quit. But there's a frictional cost to moving from company to company for the driver. So if you can resolve your problem like I was able to at GP Transco, then that's a win for everybody. And companies that won't do that, they're not serious about keeping good drivers. So anyway, take care. I hope this helps, especially for new drivers, especially for people that find themselves kind of feeling like they don't have much recourse. You do. You have a lot of power. Use it. So be safe out there, and like I said, stay tuned. There's going to be another video coming about some information that I've learned about my company, GP Transco, that I'd like to share. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.